5 common mistakes you should try to avoid while you ride your horse. Obviously, I think there's a lot more than 5 mistakes that equestrians make, but these are ones that I've seen beginners, intermediates, and even professionals do without even knowing it and not realizing that it hurts the horse. And these 5 mistakes are the ones I picked out because they can cause a lot of discomfort in your horse if you do them. So I wanted to go over them and try to nip them in the bud so you don't have to make them anymore without knowing it. And who am I to tell a professional they're doing it wrong? I don't know. All I know is that these mistakes can cause a lot of discomfort and pain in the horse, and if you're making them, then you're making a mistake. I don't care what level you are, you're still causing discomfort and pain in the horse. So let's go over them so you don't have to make them anymore. Mistake number 1, your elbow is going past your sides when you're trying to slow your horse, stop them, or just have collection. Your elbows should never pass your sides like this. You should never be trying to stop your horse and look like this. You have terrible leverage from right here. Your hands are very far apart from each other, so you're giving your horse mixed signals by pulling too far on both sides. And if you're pulling like this, you're trying to give yourself more leverage, so you're gonna make yourself lean back like that. I see a lot of people do this, even professional barrel racers and stuff, where they're trying to slow their horse and they just go like this. Your elbows should always be in front of your hips. If you're trying to stop, slow your horse down, have collection, whatever, your elbows should always be in front of your hips while you're riding. And they'll be nice and close to each other, so you're not giving your horses mixed signals. And if you need to, you can throw one rein into the other hand and grab them lower down here and do a quick one rein stop if you need to. It's always a good safety tool to have. Your hands are right here, throw them together, you bring your hand down, boom, one rein stop. If your hands are way back here, you have to bring your hands together up here, slide your hand way down. It's just a lot more effort, a lot more work. And when you're putting yourself in this position, this isn't good. Which brings me to my mistake number 2, is sitting in the chair position this way, where your knees and your heels are way ahead of yourself. So it looks like you're riding downhill, where you're leaning back, your legs are in front of you, and it kind of just, it'll feel like you're running downhill almost, and it's just gonna cause you to ride like this. And sometimes that can be caused by an ill-fitting saddle. If the saddle does not fit you well, it can put you in this chair position, which is very uncomfortable for the horse, and it's terrible for your core balance, and it'll be very hard to improve your riding from this position. So I recommend checking your saddle fit, because a lot of people think that your saddle only has to fit your horse, but it's also very important that your saddle fits you for the horse's comfort, because if you are uncomfortable and you're putting yourself in an awkward position to be comfortable like this, you're going to be hurting the horse too. So not only does a saddle have to fit the horse, but it has to fit you. And if it's putting you in a chair position like this, then it's probably the saddle causing you to sit that way. But it could also just be you too, if you've never learned any differently. So when you're cantering, doesn't matter what speed you're going, you should never look like this unless you're trying to stop. It's important to just remember that your heel should be aligned with your hip, and your hip should be aligned with your shoulders, your elbow in front of your hip. So we should have a straight line from our shoulder, hip to heel. So our back is straight, our hip and our heel should be aligned. And if you find yourself sitting like this while you're cantering and you feel like you're running downhill all the time because you're running like this and it feels like the horse is kind of running downhill, the horse is probably feeling front heavy, and they're probably putting a lot of their weight in their front end, which is going to be hard to teach them things like barrel racing or cutting, because they have to be really light on their front end and put a lot of their weight in their back end. So if you're running like this, it's because the horse is kind of falling forward. There are a lot of exercises you can do to help your horse rock back on their back end and not be so front heavy and make you feel like you're falling forward. And also just check your saddle fit. Speaking of saddle fit, that brings me to my mistake number 3, which is something I've recently realized and seen on the internet, is that a lot of people think that the proper placement for the saddle is for the tree to be on top of the shoulders, like this. And I see a lot of people say that you put it on here and it will fall into the proper place while you're riding. And this is a big, big no-no. This is gonna cause the horse a lot of pain. The saddle tree needs to go behind the shoulder. I'm gonna try not to get into a bunch of saddle fitting details right now, because technically I'm not a saddle fitter. If you want to learn a lot more about saddle fitting, go follow Saddle Fit for Life on Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube. They have a bunch of helpful tips on how to fit a saddle, and they're really knowledgeable, so highly recommend that. You want the tree to be behind the shoulder, because if it's on top of the shoulder like this, all of your weight and all of the pressure of you and the saddle is going to be on top of their shoulder. They're going to have very restricted movement in their shoulder, and it's going to be very painful for them. And I've even seen a picture of a shoulder bone from a dissected dead horse that was worn away. Like the bone had actually been worn away from the saddle being sat directly on their shoulder. You want the tree of your saddle to be behind your horse's shoulder blade so that they have free range of motion. Obviously you want to make sure that the wither is free, and then you want a nice even contact all the way down. You want to be able to slide your hand all the way down, not too easy, but not too hard. You don't want your hand to get stuck and then go freely, easily all the way through. You don't want it to be easy and then hard all the way through. You want there to be nice even contact all the way down. And if you want to fit your saddle to your horse, you want to do it without the saddle pad. This is going to make sure that the saddle fits completely on its own without needing any extra help from a pad. Obviously you ride with a pad. The pad is only there to be a pad. It's not there to make the saddle fit. So you have to make sure the saddle fits without the pad first. And since we have to put our saddle back on, let's go to mistake number 4, which is cinching. I've seen a lot of people do this, and every time I see it, I cringe to my core. So let's try to nip this in the bud. Have you ever seen anybody put their latigo over their shoulder and hike it up to tighten their cinch? I have. It's very painful to watch. And then you wonder why your horse gets cinchy. Maybe, I'm not exactly sure why they do it either. I think it's because they want to knock out the air in the horse's lungs so they can't bloat themselves and that they don't have to tighten their cinch later. But it's pretty normal, and it's going to be way more common if you try to knock the air out of the lungs. They're going to have to brace themselves, and they're like, okay, now we have to be ready for the cinch, because every time you cinch them up, they go, ugh. A nice way to cinch your horse is just to walk it up nice and slowly. We're not yanking it, knocking the air out of their lungs. If you want to make sure that your cinch is not going to slip on you, you do it all up nice and tight like you would normally. Maybe not super, super tight, like so. Da, 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 da. Yes, I'm doing the Texas T-knot. Come after me if you want. I'm ready for you. You do your cinch up. You make sure you can fit a couple fingers in there. You don't want it too tight because that can be very uncomfortable for the horse, but you want to make sure that it's tight enough, like you would put a belt on yourself. And then you just, either you can work your horse on the ground or you can get on them and work them a little bit. Then you get off and you tighten it up again. If you're really worried about your saddle slipping, or if you have a problem with your saddle slipping a lot and you always have to have your cinch really tight. I will say though, if your saddle slips really easily, even if your cinch is tight, that means you have a saddle fitting issue. And again, I recommend going to Saddle Fit for Life to get that checked out and just kind of educate yourself a little bit on how a saddle should fit. A lot of times a horse's bad behavior comes from ill-fitting saddles or pain-related things. So just give your horse the benefit of the doubt. Try to make sure that the tack and stuff that you're putting on your horse is not causing their bad behavior before you write them off as a bad horse. And last but not least, mistake number 5 is actually a jumping mistake. And yes, I probably should have put on my English saddle for this, but then I would have had to put on my English boots and all that crap, and I'm just feeling too lazy for that. So let's just talk about it for a little bit. I see a lot of beginner and intermediate jumpers do this, and a lot of times it can cause you to be off balance, and it makes you fall off your horse a lot easier if they refuse the jump or they stumble. So it's kind of just something that you have to ingrain in your brain to remember to do and to work on your balance, and try not to make this mistake because it can help your riding a lot and it can help the horse and it won't throw them off balance. So what am I talking about? I will show you. When you're going over a jump, you really want to stay balanced in your seat. Try to take me seriously in a Western saddle. I know I don't look very professional right now. Imagine me in an English saddle. I have one, I ride English. You just gotta trust me. When you go for a jump, you wanna stay balanced in your seat. You don't wanna throw yourself forward, and you don't wanna get yanked backwards. So you need to have a tight core, and you need to be right above the horse with them the whole time, not getting ahead of them or falling behind. And it's really easy. I did this a lot when I first started learning how to jump, is that you fall forward and you put your hands on your horse's neck like this. And that's really easy to do because you're bracing yourself, you're using them for support, and you're leaning forward too much. And you also land like this. On the landing, you come down like this, where your hands are on your horse, and you're kind of falling forward on the landing. So you're putting all of your balance on the horse's neck. You don't have any core muscle going on, you don't have any balance of your own going on. You're using the horse for your support. But if the horse stumbles and kind of trips forward a little bit, or if they refuse, there's nothing stopping you from just going forward. You're coming off. You're very likely going over their head. This is also going to put your leg, if you're sitting like this is going to put your leg further back. So you're gonna have a swinging leg to the back. You're not gonna have anything supporting you underneath. You're putting all your faith in the horse's neck. And you're definitely throwing the horse's balance off too, because you're putting extra weight on their neck when they're trying to jump and be athletic, which is very difficult for them. So let me demonstrate. I'm gonna try to lean forward, put my weight on her neck, like that. See, when you do that, you're falling forward, your hands are staying right here, which means you're locking your reins right here. You're not giving the horse any loose rein to extend their neck for the jump. And going back to mistake number 1, your elbows are gonna go past your sides when you're like this. Obviously, I can't get low enough because the horn of the saddle. I don't even know if you can see my head right now. You wanna anchor yourself in your heels, your heels down, not too low, because that's gonna push your leg forward if you go too far. So just anchor your heel down and keep it heel, hip, shoulder, and you're just going to work on your core muscles, and you're going to have flexible hands. Remember to keep your elbows in front of your hip, and we're going to follow the horse's head over the jump, allowing them full rein so we're not yanking on their mouth when they're trying to extend their head. Let's demonstrate that. Very good. And once you're not relying on the horse's neck to keep you centered and balanced, you're gonna be a lot more confident in yourself and your seat, which is gonna give you a lot more air of self-confidence, and the horse is going to feed off of your confidence and feel more confident in themselves. A lot of times when you're putting your weight on your horse's neck, it's kind of like a safety belt. It kind of shows that you're not confident in your seat and you need the extra support. So just remember to keep your hands off your horse's neck, follow their head over the jump so you're not pulling their head back when they're trying to extend, and have a nice full reach over the jump. Once you're confident in your seat and you're able to go over the jump without using that safety belt of holding onto the horse, you're gonna feel a lot more confident in your abilities, and it'll be a lot easier to ride no hands, because you're relying on your core muscle and your own balance to keep yourself on and not your hands. Hope that helped. Okay, I hope you guys learned something from this video. Another thing I want to suggest is filming yourself. A lot of people have like mirrors and stuff in their fancy barns that they get to look at while they ride, but I highly recommend setting up a camera and filming yourself riding so you can really critique your riding. And sometimes you don't even know that you're leaning backwards or you're on the horse's neck. Sometimes you don't realize you're doing those things until you start filming yourself, which is basically what I started doing, and then I realized that my riding was trash, and then I would look up videos on how to do it better. And yeah, it's okay to be making mistakes, it's okay to be doing it wrong, as long as we're trying to get better and as long as we're not harming our horse. That's the biggest thing. We all want our horses to behave well, and a lot of the times their bad manners comes from pain-related things that we are causing from our tack and our training. So we just want to make sure that we are setting our horses up for success, and we're not so quick to blame the horse for the problem when we might be causing it. So I just want to throw that out there. Anyways, thanks guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and like this video if you did. Subscribe, because I post new videos every single Sunday. You can go follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you guys next week, Sunday. Bye! 这个。